Hey, before I kick off the podcast, I just want to shout out Next Door Clothing. Next Door, a clothing brand based out of Bondi in Sydney. They're making really nice jeans and shirts and hats. So go and check out their full range at nextdoorsydney.com. They're also artists, so you can go and check out a range of art. They put on rad parties, and I love what they're doing. So nextdoorsydney.com for the full range.
So, mate, I'm lucky I'm here in Bali now, but I was like, holy shit, imagine if I couldn't work from remote and I was stuck somewhere with no money. Like, what would you do? Like, I'm like lucky because I can work from here, but not everyone would have been able to do that.
You were like proper displaced.
Yeah, I was honestly, and the thing is with mental health, man, I'd run out of meds. I had 1 week left of medication for bipolar, and I went to a doctor in Norway. They wouldn't prescribe it. So I was stuck in Norway, like about to run out of medication. And luckily, my best mate from New Zealand was flying to Jakarta same time, so he brung over my meds. So I was stuck there with like meds about to run out. And you don't want to leave someone who has bipolar with meds about to run out. So my family's freaking out. I'm like, nah, it'll be all good. But I was like, it just turned into this like, and lucky I don't get too stressed about that stuff, but I was like, holy shit, this has actually turned into a situation. Like I don't even, yeah.
So you don't get too concerned if your medication's going to run out?
I get concerned if the meds are going to run out for sure. Yeah, like if I wouldn't leave it more than a day with meds. I knew I'd be able to get the meds somehow because I was like, if I can't get them in Norway, I'll fly to London because I've lived in London before. So that was kind of like I had a fallback plan with meds. So yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, that was like a week ago, but now I'm in Bali and everything's all good.
That's
it's been my last week, bro. So it's like it's good time to catch up because this time last week I was just like, what the hell am I doing?
But I'm sorry, I don't want to pressure too much on this because I'm genuinely interested. But I mean, like, why would you be concerned that you don't have the meds? Do you feel that you become like more unpredictable, or do things in your life become more unmanageable? I just think it's just interesting to know, if you don't mind sharing. I'm curious.
Yeah, man, it's a real good question. Hey, and like I think so. For years, like I had no idea I had bipolar. I was just a happy kid growing up, and my dad has got bipolar too, and he's like me. Like we just grew up being known as the happy, and we are like happy people. It's just that sometimes, we can suffer depression, but also extreme highs. And so my biggest fear is actually the extreme highs because that's how I found out I had bipolar. Like it was 9 years ago. Yeah, it was 9 years ago. I was working for a tequila company and partying heaps. It was during the Australian Surf Open, and I'd been diagnosed with depression a couple of months before, but no one had any idea, and I was just hiding it. And the antidepressants had actually started to kick in, and I was feeling like super happy again. I wasn't sweating the small stuff and just starting to feel things again. And but it was the wrong diagnosis. So basically, these antidepressants sent me up to like the mannequin, which is when you go from being I'm usually pretty chill, but you go from being pretty chilled within a week. And this is like a manic episode, everything speeds up. Like you feel like you got superpowers. It feels like you're in some kind of movie and like finally haven't got anxiety. You're not worried about what people think. And you get this like confidence. And for example, like I broke up with a girlfriend on Friday night of 5 years. Wednesday, I'd spent all my money on bar tabs, even though I had all this free tequila. Thursday, I dressed up as a tequila farmer and walked into my boss's office, this tequila job, and that I loved. And I was like, okay, I'm over this corporate shit. I don't know how tequila marketing is corporate, but I dressed up in this tequila like farmer outfit, rolled in, thinking I had everything sorted. I'm like, I'm going to start a charity called Where the Party At, and I'm going to follow the surf tour around. I'm going to throw parties and raise money for Surf Aid. And it all seemed to make sense. I ran out, partied for a couple more days in Manly. But then it was on the Sunday, and this is why I'm so scared about not having my meds is because everyone has ups and downs, but for me, those extreme highs, you just lose all sense of control. And my friends tried to stop me, but they came over and I was like talking so fast. Like usually you get ideas, but this week, if I had an idea, boom, I'd do it. It just spend my money. One idea was I stole this was the last straw. I stole a surf club paddleboard off the beach during the semi-final, the surf open, like Sally and Laura were surfing, and I just thought I was going out there to support, and I got chased by officials and handcuffed by police and taken to the mental health ward in Manly. That was my first time in the mental health ward. I've had 2 stints, and that's where I was diagnosed with bipolar. And the reason why I'm so scared of being high, going that high, is because if I feel after 2 or 3 days without my meds, and sometimes I forget 2 or 3 days, I start going from that kind of relaxed vibe to like, you don't need sleep. You kind of like, you don't need sleep. You've got all these ideas, but you're fully not rational, and you kind of don't listen to people. You just like, it feels like everything's happening for a reason, and you're trying to help people. Like everything I was doing was about being kind. Like I want to raise money for Surf Aid. I want to help people, but yeah, it's just, you just lose all sense of reality. And so I can feel it, like if I'm not sleeping good, or if I party for a couple of nights in a row now, I start to feel that like edgy feeling. And that's when I'm like, I've got to chill. Like I've got to sleep. I've got to take it easy. That's my sign. But like the highs now are the thing that scares me. The lows, I can feel a bit more coming, and I kind of know how to manage them a bit more. But the highs, once I'm in that, I won't listen to people. Like I'll just be like, I'll be gone, And so yeah, that's kind of why I get worried about those, not having the mids and the highs.
Dude, like that's
it's pretty hectic story.
Immediately, like just so engaging and understandable, And from my perspective, listening to you speak, it sounds like a big factor in this was getting honest with yourself, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and also it sounds like a very large sense of humility had to take place as well, like being humble enough to go, listen, this happens when I do this.
Yeah, it's just feeling like I never used to understand what mental health was. I thought it was, thought it meant you're crazy. I don't want to be. Sometimes I think a lot about, okay, how can I help others open up? Because I know that as soon as I started telling people, and it took me years, they started opening up to me. I found out some of my best mates, but I'm like, what stopped me? And I think about this a lot, like what stopped me opening up? And I think the first thing is I didn't understand it because we didn't talk about it at school. I didn't know anyone that was going through it. That was 9 years ago. The second thing is I didn't want people to see me as like a sad person. I thought that I was the happy one, and it kind of gave me this increased pressure. Do you know you're the one that always brings the energy, or you're the one that goes in and always laughing? And then I felt I had to be that all the time. You just can't, and it's that added pressure of like going to a party and not feeling. And I was doing that all the time, going to these tequila parties, and I'm happy, dude, but not all the time. It's just you can't be, It's not, you can't keep that up. And so I worry now most about the people that are always happy, because I'm like, man, like honestly, if you need to talk, I'm here, because I know you just can't keep up that energy,
I know you're really big on, changing the stigma around mental health, but what about the stigma around the use of medication?
Yeah, there's a massive stigma. Hey, you'll take insulin, if you've got diabetes, you'll take any other type of medication if you've got a heart condition. Imagine if they said any other condition, you can be more happy or, more healthy, or it's going to help you be stronger. Which, medication just fixes the chemical imbalance. I just call them, when they started working, I just call them, my pepper pills are happy pills. I'm like, if they're going to make me happy. But the first time I got diagnosed, I hid them when I went to the pharmacy. And the first time I got diagnosed with, it was perfectionism before depression. I was like, yes, I don't have to go on medication, and, but as soon as they kicked in, 6 weeks later, I'm like, holy shit, what have I been doing? For some reason, you think you should put up feeling like shit. And not all the time, but I have days where I couldn't go to work. I had to ring up and pretend I was sick. I couldn't enjoy a coffee. I couldn't go for a surf. I didn't enjoy having a shower, the smallest things. And once I got on the medication, it just helped balance it out and kind of bring my stoke levels up from right down here to here. And that gave me the energy to go out and do the things that make me even happier, like surfing, hang out with mates. So I feel like some people are lucky and they have like, everyone has ups and downs. But for me, the lows can be real low. And I beat myself up. I have heaps of self-doubt, but no one can see it. But with the medication, it just kind of gives me that buffer. For me, the lows, it increases my energy and helps my mood, helps give me more good vibes. It also protects me from the highs. So I feel like not everyone needs medication. Everyone has a different recipe for managing their mental health. But for me, that's a key part of my recipe. I have to take 2 types of medication for bipolar. And look, I used to hate taking it, but now I'm like, it's just I have to take like 4 pills a day, and it's just what I have to do. Like if that allows me to go out and surf and have a good time with friends and get through the tough patches, then I've just got to do it. So I definitely wasn't keen at the start, but now I'm like, I just need it. It's part of my recipe.
That statement you made, like it protects you from the highs. You don't often hear that. You often, when we talk about mental health, more mental health management, it's always, we've got to protect ourselves from the lows. But, to protect, having that sense of like, well, I know I've got to protect myself from the highs because what goes up must come down, right? And I guess
100%,
that's it's really interesting. But one thing I do want to sort of ask you again about with the medication, was it a bit of a journey with the medication in terms of getting like dosage right, and was it trial and error in regards to finding your, I guess, balance point with it or sweet spot?
Yeah, for sure, man. I remember being in the mental health ward the first time, and like it just the stuff they gave me just put me to sleep. And I remember one night I was like just full shaking my legs, and I went on just like, oh, I need some help, and they just kind of shut the window. Like you get some really good people in the mental health space, and you get some really bad people. And I think it's just like relationships. You just got to keep going. Don't give up until you find the right one. And at the start, the medication, I got my lithium was too high. So I'd be out for dinner and just falling asleep. But luckily I found a legend doctor, Sharon in Avalon. And the key thing is like she surfs, but also she gets it. And she got me on to medication that, so I take lithium and my other one is Lamictal. And because the thing is with lithium, it brings your mood down and sometimes that can make you pretty kind of flat. But she's found a good balance now I feel like it's a good balance for me. I have to get my blood levels tested every 2 or 3 months just to make sure I'm in the right zone for lithium. For me, it's been a journey, and it still is. I still get quite a lot of anxiety. So I've looked into, do I need to change the meds to help with that? But I'm trying at the moment to balance that more with meditation, breathing. I found that's been really powerful for me and anti-anxiety meds, for me, there's a risk I can go too high. So I'm like, I don't want to bring, so I've talked about it with my doctor. I'm like, I don't want to bring the risk of going too high for me. I haven't been in the mental health ward now for 7 years. I've been in twice, like 1 year and then pretty much a year after. And I just anything not to end up back in there. So I kind of learn, like you learn so much, but the most I learn is actually talking to other people, talking to my dad who's on medication, talking to my mate who's on it, and not getting prescribed, like, what do you take? It's just more just like you realize you're not alone, but also you kind of get tips off them, but okay, what level are you on? I'm like, we should talk about this stuff. We talk about parties and surfing and everything else, but like, why don't we start talking about, like therapists would chat and do checkups from the neck up and stuff. So I think get a good doctor, just call it a checkup from the neck up, and talk to your mates about it, like at the pub, man, have a beer and just yarn and be like, hey, how are you really going? Or how's your headspace? I think that's been massive for me.
Dude, it's just the best. And, when I heard about and learnt about, your initiatives, it really resonated with me because I learnt probably about 9 years ago, like the power of identification. So when you share your story and then someone else hears that and then they identify with elements of it and vice versa, there's just something so healing in that. I don't want to know why it works. It just works. So, you're telling me some of the experiences you've had, and I'm like, yeah, look, that happened to me and that happened to me. And like, and all of a sudden I'm like, I'm not alone. Like an immediate reduction of feelings of isolation. And fundamentally, I just feel like humans just want to connect.
Yeah.
So, and you
100%.
are literally epitomise it. And I really feel like your initiatives and the community that you're creating is literally doing that. But listen, bro, anyway, like,
No,
we're not even
you're doing
officially
that. Thanks for
started.
everything you do. That's like, yeah, man, legend.
But one thing I've learned is, like, straight away, like, I often have some of my best conversations at the start of a podcast. So now I do just hit the record button, because it's just like what you've just shared then. I actually haven't heard a lot of people speak so openly about straight away their condition and also their medication, especially. I've only ever had one other guest talk about his medication for OCD. And again, we talk about the stigma around mental health, but I really think there's a stigma around the use of medication that probably needs to be addressed more, in my opinion. I get that a lot. I love that.
That's that one
amazing.
I was when I did the paddle out. So that was when I stole the surfboard. I actually went into a surf shop, man, and actually filled up all the. This was before I paddled out. Filled up the whole trolley, like a supermarket trolley, into the surf shop at Manly. Pulled it up, and I thought I was gonna auction it, so buy it and auction it off. But I'm like, how the fuck am I gonna make any money like auctioning? Lucky my credit card didn't work. I'm like, I got so many stories about it. Could end a day on that thing, but yeah, I'm keen to support surfing for sure.
Were you drinking as well when that happened?
Not that day, man. I'd been out partying the nights before, but once you're manic, like it's pretty much you don't need to drink anything out. It's like you're on the craziest high. So,
dude, so interesting. So that was like when Laura Enever and Sally Fitz were having a heat. You paddled out.
There was a semi. Yeah.
At Manly during the Australian Open.
And I look back now, I'm just like, holy shit! Like, what was I even thinking? It's so crazy, man.
But on a serious note, when, let's say, something like that occurs due to your, maybe manic state, do you fall into like a guilt and shame and remorse type vibe afterwards?
Mate, 100%. When I ended up in a hospital, and I was still kind of like quite high, but definitely I moved back home to New Zealand and spent 6 months at home, and I was living in Sydney at the time. And because I'd gone from running all these tequila parties, and we'd actually started a bit of a surf team, giving out products like Laura and Wilco and stuff, and then for all that to happen and just super embarrassed, I pretty much just shut myself off for everyone for 6 months. So partly coming in one wave was this I wanted to help people with, I just kind of, that was the thing that gave me something positive to focus on, because otherwise I would have just been so angry at the world and embarrassed. So kind of one wave was my way of something positive from a real shit situation.
This is for Clementine and Otis. All right, so this week's episode is brought to you by Vans Shoes Australia and New Zealand. So if you go to terriblehappytalks.com, which is the best place to listen to this podcast, the website now has its own built-in media player and direct access to the full back catalogue of almost 130 episodes. While you're there, click on any of the Vans banners on the homepage or in the partnerships tab for direct links to the full Vans shoe range, including loads of sale items, which I mind you has just been updated. And I guess with Vans as a partnership, I just don't know what else to say about Vans. They're all I wear. I chill in them. I skate in them. Literally got my first pair of Vans half cabs in the early 90s when I saw a skate video with Mike Carroll wearing them in the Plan B questionable video. So anyway.
Yeah. Good to be here, man. Whoa. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. All right, let's do this.
Today's guest is Grant Trebilco. Grant is a surfer, mental health awareness advocate, and founder of the epic One Wave is All It Takes and Fluro Friday mental health awareness and stigma reduction initiatives. How does that sound, Grant? Does that sound all right?
Yeah, we'll take it. Thanks, fella.
It's kind of long. I was recently watching a documentary about addiction and mental health, and a speaker on the show said, and I quote, "Our liabilities can become our greatest assets." And in my opinion, Grant is the epitome of this statement. After years of hiding his mental health issues, Grant decided to take action. and make change in his life and the lives of others. So today, Grant is with me live from Canguu Bali, where I used to live, to share his journey, experiences, challenges, and hopes for the future. Mr. Grant Trebilco, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me, mate, and thanks for everything you do, man. I'm stoked to be on the podcast. You've been starting so many conversations about mental health in a real way, so thanks heaps, mate.
Dude, thank you as well. I mean, immediate identification and just, I guess, gratitude for what you're doing. And already we've started this podcast with a pretty in-depth conversation, and you just lay it all out on the table. How much courage does it take to start being that honest about yourself?
Yeah, I think the people I know that have been honest, it started with my dad, who has bipolar, and he was the one that inspiration for me, because he's like the happy dude, but I had no idea he had bipolar for about 10 years, I think. And when he opened up to me, it made me realize that I could still have an epic life, even though I had a mental health condition, having bipolar. But for me, like, I didn't open up till I got to my lowest low. It was like 9 years ago when I ended up in the mental health ward and was diagnosed with bipolar, and I didn't want to be diagnosed with bipolar. So to anyone out there, like, just know it's okay not to be okay. Like, when I got low, I used to think that shit was bad and it can only get worse. But now I just know, okay, I've been here before, I've felt it. I know what bipolar is, I know what depression is. I've just got to hang on and go back to the things that helped me get the stoke back. So I think anyone who opens up about their mental health has got the most courage ever. And I'll tell anyone out there struggling today, just tell at least one person that you're struggling, because you'll be surprised. I opened up to a mate. I thought he'd run the other way. He came back 2 days later and said he had anxiety. He never told anyone. I'm like, that just keeps happening. So yeah, you're not alone. Like, whatever you're going through right now, that's for sure.
Did you ever become resigned to, like, before this and before you started really taking action to address the bipolar, did you ever think that, okay, I'm just going to have to live with this suffering and pain for the rest of my life?
Yeah, 100%. Like, I was just known as the happy dude, and I didn't want that to change. Like, I was doing marketing for a tequila company, throwing parties all the time. I had to turn up and be happy all the time. And but there was days when I couldn't even get out of bed and go to work, and I just had to ring up my boss and saying, oh, I've got the flu, I actually wouldn't even ring, I just like text, and it's like weird how you had to cover up having anxiety, depression, if you're sick with any other thing or you break something, you can ring up your boss and say just need some time out. But I didn't know how to do that, and I'd never really talked to anyone about having depression and anxiety. So yeah, I wasn't ready to talk about it. It took me years, and I just thought you had to put up with it. I just thought that was life, because no one really talked about mental health. That was 9 years ago. So yeah, I just kept on keeping on. It was tough, it's so hard to go through that by yourself, when you can't talk to anyone.
Yeah. I'm just, I love that you're a surfer, and just in our initial conversation, you said you reached out for help and you've seen various doctors, but there was one doctor in particular who was also a surfer. And you felt like you could connect with her a little bit better. Is that correct?
Yeah, 100%. The dream was always like, I had some really bad experiences with doctors at the start, but I think it's like relationships. You just got to keep going until you find the right one for you. And I was looking for a doctor and a psychologist that surfed, and I found this doctor at Avalon. I was like, if there's a doctor at Avalon, there's a good chance they surf. So it was Sharon, and she surfs, but she just gets it. Like, I felt from the first time. So for me, I have to take medication for bipolar. It's an important part. And I remember I went to see her, and I was trying to change up my medication because the one I was on was just making me feel so sleepy, so flat. And I tried with another doctor, and I didn't want to try because not all doctors have really high knowledge around bipolar. And I was going home for Christmas, and she's like, look, because you're going home, you're going to be with family. I'll try on these new meds because you're going to be around, a good environment that know when you're going up too high or low. And she's like, I'll try on these meds, but I'm going to check in with you. I'm like, nah, doctors don't check in. Like, you're on holidays. But she like is messaging me like every few days, texting me. I'm like, holy shit, there's good doctors out there. So ever since, I just drive like from Bondi to Ave whenever I needed to see the doctor, or I message her where I need to get advice, you know. So yeah, that doc are good. And she actually came to the Billabong one way event at Narrabeen for the comp just recently, the WSL, and she came down and sat in the anti-bad vibe circle. And so yeah, she's such a legend. Actually, she had Italo staying with her. Actually, yeah, Italo was staying. So yeah, she's the best.
That's amazing, dude. So tell me about your background. Like, where did you grow up? Where are you from? I want to sort of get that stuff out of the way a little bit.
Yeah, I grew up in the Mount Maunganui in New Zealand. So yeah, just grew up surfing and playing rugby. You know, had a fun as life, and then I went traveling. Probably like 10 years ago, I went snowboarding in Canada and then to London and Europe for a bit. And I thought I'd stop in Sydney on the way home. And yeah, I've been in Sydney like nearly 8 or 9 years. I've been in Sydney now. So yeah, grew up in New Zealand, but been in Oz like a good stint now.
As a kid in New Zealand, you know, did you go to public schools?
Yeah, public schools in NZ, yeah.
Yeah, and like, do you feel like at a young age, or that in hindsight, could you see elements of your bipolar emerging?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's pretty crazy because I went back to my old school. So I went to a boys' school in New Zealand, which it sounds pretty random actually saying it now about. But I went to boys' school when I've just been in Norway, and I told my girlfriend, she's like, you were in boys only school? I was like, yeah, boys only school. And but it was good to like love rugby, and so it was good school. But I actually went back there to do a talk around mental health when I was back in New Zealand. And we did a big Fluro Friday event, and it was like when I was at school, I didn't know what mental health was, but we went into the school and it was just all the students were dressed in Fluro, all the teachers. And one of my old teachers came up to me and said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't know that you'd struggled when you're at school." And I was like, "Oh, no, I actually don't think I did," looking back, because I was so busy with like sports. And I've found for me, one of the biggest things is like exercise, having routine. And I feel like at school you had like rugby, you had like tennis, you had surfing, you're like always so busy. So I feel like that helped me. But looking back, I probably had signs of like anxiety, like social anxiety in situations where don't like to be around. I used to love going to parties and stuff, and there's times when I felt good, but other times there's just times when I just didn't want to be around people. And for me, that's a sign now. I'm like, okay, I've got a bit of anxiety coming back. It might be in a co-working space, there's just too many people around, so at school I feel like a little bit of anxiety, but no big stints of depression probably until I started working. Was probably after uni was the same. I think it was really when I started working was the first time I really had depression.
Wow. So through your school years, your high school years, if you reflect on those times, you reflect on them fondly, and you didn't find them overly challenging?
No, I had fun. Like, I had such a good crew, and I had like epic family, and like it was really the best. Like, because we just grew up surfing and playing rugby, and when I tell my mates that, or when my friends in New Zealand found out, and they were just like, "Man, you're the last person I expected to have mental health challenges out of all our mates," because I was just the happy dude, and I definitely had signs of it, but I think it wasn't until probably like mid-20s that it really started to hit.
Mid-20s. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you so you said that you went from high school, did you go straight to university from high school?
Straight to uni. Yeah, I went to uni in New Zealand, like not far from Raglan. So like went to work at a uni for like 4 years.
What did you study there?
I did marketing and economics.
Marketing economics. Interesting.
Yeah.
And did you get a job? Like, okay, actually, no. While you're at uni, like traditionally, university times are, linked with heavy partying as well. I mean, I know I did when I was at university.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, were you partying during that time? And how do you think? What was that doing to your mental health? Heavy partying.
Yes, it was definitely partying. Hey, it was kind of around the like rugby and surf culture. You know, we love getting on the beers, you know, and I still love having a beer. I just have to make sure I just like tone it down a bit, not too many nights in a row. But yeah, for me through uni, I had signs like a little bit of anxiety and stuff, but it didn't really hit me until at uni. Like you had something to measure against, because you could go like, you had kind of grades you could get. So you kind of like at the end of every like course, marketing, whatever, you had 6 weeks, you had to do so much work, and then you get a grade, and then you could just chill and switch off. Or you had your sports and you got a holiday. It was not until I started my first job and I put so much pressure on myself, and you're not getting any feedback. I'd started this marketing job for like Fluro in New Zealand, so they do like the energy drinks and My Zone water and stuff. And I was on the grad program, and I remember going in to talk to my boss and being like, "I'm so sorry, like I don't think I'm doing a good job." She's like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, oh, I just don't, you know, I feel like I'm super nervous in presentations, and I was starting to get anxiety around not doing good. And she's like, "Honestly, you look so relaxed. There's no signs of that at all." And so that's when I think perfectionism started and anxiety started for me. It was when I wasn't getting that feedback all the time, and I wasn't getting the break as well. Like you're just like, bang, one project to the next. Like, yeah, that was when it started for me.
I find it really interesting that you mentioned perfectionism. I know for me personally, it's just been such a double-edged sword, because sometimes that approach to things can really like serve you and you know, probably help you land that awesome job and find yourself in that position anyway. But conversely, it can be debilitating in terms of the pressure you put on yourself. So now that you're a bit more understanding of yourself and how the mechanics of your brain work, what is your approach to doing things now? Is it still perfectionism, or how has your attitude changed in regards to that?
I just know the signs now a bit more. So I know, for example, like if I'm like got a heap going on with work and stuff, and like I don't mind being like crazy busy and stuff, but I just know there's times when I can feel, I get that tight feeling in my chest and then in my throat. I know that I'm getting anxiety starting. So that means I've got to like either take a nap, do some exercise, or just talk to someone about it, you know, or just talk to my doctor or psychologist. So I know that. And I know that now. I'm like, okay, there's times when I've done like mental health talks in front of like hundreds of people when I've got anxiety, and now I just know, I'm like, okay, they can't see it. Like, just as long as you're okay, like they can't see it. So I just can understand now what it feels like, but also I know that it's temporary. Like I'd never felt anxiety before I started that job, but I thought it was going crazy, and I'm like, where does this stop? You know, it's only going to get worse. So for now, I'm just like, okay, it's temporary. You know, it'll pass. I've just got to go back to like the free the funk tools, or my mental health tools that help me, you know, take care of my mental health. So for me, it's understanding that mental health is not just mind, it's body. And usually I'll feel it coming into my body first, and then it starts impacting my head. And it was not understanding that body thing that really threw me for ages.
Yeah. You know, I was just listening to you then. We are having a few little internet connection issues. Like Bali. I get it. Every Bali podcast, I get it. But I'm just used to it now. But I will say, like, what always spins me out is like, health is dynamic, which means it's ever changing for various reasons. So your physical health is dynamic. Sometimes you're really healthy. Sometimes you catch a cold. It's not your choice. You just get it and you get sick, or sometimes you get run down. You know, and mental health is no different. Like life is going to dish out hard things. There's going to be grief. There's going to be things that are causing pressure or stress. So yes, you know, you're never going to have optimal mental health all the time. But when our physical health is down, it's so acceptable. It's like, yep, it's okay. Go and have a Panadol. Go and have a lay down. But just with the mental health, and you've already said it, it's like, yes, I am going to have periods in my life where I'm feeling really good, and I'm going to have periods in my life when I'm feeling really down. Why do you think there is stigma around mental health? What's your opinion on it?
Yeah, I think it's a really good point what you're saying about how I think with mental health, I don't think you can eliminate sadness, stress, like depression, anxiety. I wish you could, but I don't think you can. But you can build up your resilience to it, by talking to people, talking to doctors, psychologists, by working on your, training at the gym or doing meditation. I feel like that's, if we can talk more about awareness and building up like physical strength, like mental strength, and resilience, then we can start helping people open up, because there's too much stigma. And I think the reason there's the stigma is in the past, it's being talked about as a mental illness. And, you have psych wards, which have been seen as like a crazy place. And I think for me, that was the big thing. I didn't know anyone who had bipolar like me. I'd never talked to anyone who'd been in a mental health ward, but now I've been in a mental health ward twice. I've met so many other people who are suffering from mental health challenges like me. There's so many amazing communities and charities and epic podcasts and legends like you talking about mental health, that it is like it's changing and the stigma is reducing, and that's the best thing ever. But we're still losing like 8 to 9 people a day from suicide. So we've still got so much to do, because there's still people, and usually it's like the kindest, happiest people that we're losing because they're looking after everyone else. They don't know how to reach out for help. They don't want to be seen as, like sad or not happy all the time. So there's still so much stigma there, eh?
Would you say you're a sensitive person?
Yeah, 100%. But I wouldn't have used to say that, but I reckon now for sure, after going through mental health challenges and spending time in a mental health ward, that was the thing that really changed my life. I was fighting it for the first couple of days. I remember just like doing anything to get out of there. But in there, like I was bored shitless, there was one thing I could do was like dance at night, just like it's the one thing. Because if I danced during the day, they'd think I was manic. They wouldn't let me out. There's one thing I like, dance at night, yoga in the day, because then they'd think I was chilling, but also just talking to people, like people with schizophrenia, people with anxiety. And I honestly found that anyone who's been through mental health challenges or supports someone is the most kindest, sensitive people ever. And I learned so much from those people, and that was my big inspiration behind starting One Wave. Like, imagine if we can just get more people in the ocean, more people talking about mental health, then hopefully they don't have to end up in the mental health ward like me, or even worse, hopefully we don't lose another good person, because it honestly breaks me. And every day I get up and thinking like, what stopped me from opening up, and how can we make it easier for people to open up? Because that's something that, we've just got so much more we can do.
I had a past guest on once, and he described what you're saying as people who are like that are deeply empathetic, or they're empaths, and he came to the realization that, that empathy and that sensitivity is really a superpower if you know how to channel it properly, and then I think it's profoundly sad when we lose people of that nature. And I have lost friends, as nearly everyone has, and it's ironic, because I also think some of the biggest and most great change makers in our world, musicians, artists, who have free thinkers who've changed cultures, are the same, except they've channeled it into something. And
yeah.
I'm you know what I mean? I'm not really going with a question here. I'm just making a sort of a
It's
a comment.
It's such a tough thing. And for me, like, I realize I always have been. I've always been like, trying to people please. And I'd always, probably the thing actually that was hardest for me is hurting. I was so afraid of hurting people that sometimes I wouldn't be open about how I was actually feeling. But the biggest thing I've learned is, like, because you learn who all the good people are in your life once you end up in a mental health ward, once you diagnose with bipolar, you learn the tight crew. I used to try and please everyone, but after that, I'm like, okay, I'm going to look after the people that look after me. And the moment I realized that it's impossible for everyone to like you, like, it's just can't. The moment I realized that, I'm like, it just took all this pressure off me, because that meant I could go to a party and be like, I don't have to be happy all the time, because my mates are here for me, they'll be here for me no matter what. So that was what changed for me, man. It's like when I hit that lowest low, I'm like, kind of realized like who the most important people were in my life, and that I didn't have to please anyone. Because I'm like, I was so afraid of being seen as different. But once I was in the mental health, I'm like, well, fuck, people know that I'm struggling now. I can't fucking hide anymore, So yeah, that was the thing.
Would you say it was liberating?
Yeah, I think when I got out of hospital after 2 weeks, I just spent like every day in the ocean. I couldn't work for 6 months and moved back home to New Zealand and lived with mum and dad. And I just surfed every day. And like, the ocean was the first thing that really got me through. One wave is all it takes to help me get the stoke back. But it wasn't that alone. It was like good people, my family and my friends, and I started to open up to them. And probably the most liberating thing was when I first started telling my friends, and instead of running the other way, some of them started opening up to me. And you don't want your mates to be struggling, but I was just so happy that I wasn't alone, and me opening up allowed them to open up. I was like, fuck, like I just realized that my mates, all surfers, the biggest shitters, I'm like, how are we all struggling and we haven't even talked about this? Like, we talk about all the parties and surf trips and whatever. I'm like, this is like the most important thing. So just started telling more and more friends. So the most liberating thing was just realizing I'm not alone, and opening up about my mental health actually brought my mates closer together than before. So I'm like, I just wanted to share this recipe of like the ocean, saltwater therapy. One way is all it takes, and just letting people know they're not alone. It's okay not to be okay. And just getting more people in the ocean and talking about mental health, because I found that everyone's fighting about it you know nothing about, and most of the time it's those kind, happy people that might be struggling just like you. And that was the liberating thing, was getting up every day and just focusing on that. Because if I'd focused on the negatives, I'd lost my job, broke up with a girlfriend, I was super embarrassed, I honestly would be still struggling big time right now. And I still struggle. I still suffer anxiety, but I just know now that just got to do what it takes to ride through that. But if I didn't have One Wave and that One Wave community and family and friends, like, I don't know what I'd be doing.
Would it be safe to say you almost feel empowered when you speak so openly about it? Does it empower you to go, I suffer, I have a condition, and yes, I've been in an institution, and yes, like does that empower you?
I was so scared the first time I did it. I was actually a good mate, my best mate, Jay Reeve in New Zealand. I was kind of talking to him, and I was like, man, I kind of don't really know what's the best way to deal with this. Like, I don't know who to talk to about it. And he's like, man, just get in front of your screen, just like record it. And so I remember I was this was like right at the start before I told anyone. And so I just basically just like this. And I remember, and I was just like full crying. I'd never really cried that much before. And I was just like telling my story. And then that was when I was like, it felt good to let it out. And if you had told me that one day I'm going to be up in front of companies or in front of my old school talking about mental health and that old stuff, I'd be like, no way, that's not me. I'm the happy dude. Like, no way. Like, but for me now, the liberating thing was just helping others open up. As soon as me telling my story helped others open up and realize they were not alone, that's when it became liberating, because I'm like, okay, this is not about me anymore. This is about how I can share my tough times and give people some hope. And that's and there's times I don't feel like talking about. There's times when you just need to, like, take it easy. I need downtime. But yeah, if it helps one people open up, then I'm going to do it every day.
Was it like a pay it forward type feeling? And did it, like, what sort of feelings does it generate in you when other people open up to you? Like, so it's generating good feelings in you when you're helping someone?
Definitely generate good feelings. Obviously, like, you're worried about your mates when they open up to you, but the moment I realized, like, it's not about trying to fix it, it's just about just being there and just like asking them, how can I support you? And it'd always be like, okay, how did my mates support me? They were just there for me. They gave me a hug. They took me surfing. They were just there to listen. And so for me, Yeah, it helps because if it gives your mates the chance to open up, or if we go to and do a school talk, a Fluro Friday at school, and there's a student that comes up afterwards, they're just standing there and you can tell it means something by the look in their eyes, and you give them the chance to open up. That's, that's what it's all about. But for me, that's just the start. Like the big thing for me then is like, how can we connect them up with professional support? Because that's where we lose so many people is like, okay, you need to talk to your friends about it. You need to have, your exercise, your meditation, but, a lot of us need professional support. So we partner with local doctors and psychologists now in the communities where we have Fluro Fridays. And if I go to do a school talk, we'll kind of send, links. And everyone's different and everyone needs different, some doctors and psychologists are not right for everyone, but we just provide people with support for where they can go, because that's my big worry about someone opens up to you, but what happens when they go home from the beach, So, yeah, that's the big thing.
Again, an example is, I always find it funny, someone will happily pay for a personal trainer, but they'll be reluctant to pay for a professional psychologist.
Yeah.
It's, isn't it weird? I don't know.
It's crazy. I've done the same,
thing.
mate. Yeah, and I've done the same, mate. Like, I was like, how am I going to pay $200 for a psychologist? And then I was like, it's like the gym for the mind, It's like we talk about sports, like surfing, rugby, about like working on our mind game. You talk about, surfers that might want to compensate. Like my headspace was good, like I was in good headspace. But we should talk about that like for life, because if you get your headspace, you work on your mind game for life, headspace is good, work's better, surfing's better, relationships are better if your headspace is good. So it's like, but for some reason there's that stigma around psychologists, but it's changing. I know my mates now will talk about which therapists, psychologists we're seeing, or we'll see people posting online, like, hey, recommendations of psychologists. I'm like, yes, like it's changing a lot in the last couple of years.
They give you mind workout techniques, like techniques and tools. It's the same stuff, dude. And I agree, it fully is changing. I really do, without generalizing or stereotyping too much. Women just do it so much better than men. They talk about their feelings so much. They seem to anyway.
Yeah.
Happily talk about their feelings and their emotions. I know that's what I've witnessed from afar, but I mean, I love it. I have a really good group of friends now who I can just speak so openly to about all of my feelings, and we're just counselling each other on a daily basis, without ego. And I think it's this shedding of the ego that really frees you to heal. And that's just me from my personal experience. When you're willing to put the machoism aside and put the ego aside and go, like, I'm not that strong sometimes. I get emotional, I get sad, I get down. But where I find you interesting, Grant, is you're one of the first people who really highlight that they need to be wary of the good times, like it's I just find that so funny, because everyone's always like, oh, I've got to watch out when I get down, I get depressed, You're like, oh, I've got to watch out, don't want to get too happy,
It's a weird feeling, because sometimes you're like, am I getting too high, like I'm getting too happy, or just, is that a good time? It's like, that's the tough thing about bipolar, right? Because it's like life, you have ups and downs and stuff, I guess, and it's like surf, some of the surf's pumping, sometimes it's like flat as, it's kind of, and for me in life, it's just like if I find somewhere in between, like somewhere like not too high, not too low, just kind of find the flow, that's like the dream for me, it's like, there's somewhere in the middle where you're still having the good times, but I know for bipolar, it's just and I've only had 2 manic episodes, luckily, but the last one was 7 years ago. So I've just got to be so careful. Like sleep's so important for me. Exercise, just talking about it with mates and professional support. And meditation and breathing. I've learned like box breathing has helped me a lot. Mate, I'm learning that's the thing with mental health is like wellness is every day, and it's something that for me I still suffer from anxiety a lot, and so it's something I've got to keep working on, because I feel like sometimes it's like, you kind of work on it for a while, see a psychologist, then you kind of drop it. But it's like if you stop going to the gym. Like if you're a surfer, stop going to the gym, stop training. Like you're not going to do that good at the comp, hey? Like it's kind of like with mental health too. You got to like do it like work on it every day. And sometimes that might be like taking a nap, you know, sometimes it's doing yoga, but it's like, I've found that it's an everyday thing versus fix it. It's all good. And then, yeah.
That's so interesting. I love that too. Talk us through like a typical Fluro Friday. For those that don't know, what occurs in a Fluro Friday morning session?
Yeah, Fluro Friday's a surf event that we've been running for One Wave every single week now for 8.5 years. And it started at Bondi. Yeah, it's every week for 8.5 years now. We're lucky. We've got such an epic community. There's been someone standing down the beach in their bright outfits. And the reason we surf in bright colours is it makes people happy, but it also helps make an invisible issue visible, because people all ask us, like, why are you dressed up at the Fluro? And the first thing they think is, like, you've been on an all-nighter or you're on a bucks party. But what happens is when you say it's like to raise awareness of mental health, it's the last thing they expect. On the street or on the beach, out in the surf, you have chats with complete strangers about mental health, because it's like a lighthearted way of starting like a really real combo. And so we all meet up, all ages down there. We have like we have kids who come down. We have Cedric, who's like 85. He comes down and reads his like favorite quotes, and we start off with an anti-bad vibe circle at the start of every week. And anti-bad vibe circles, it's just a check-in and ask, like, how are you really going? We share free the funk tips. You can sit and just listen. We share stories. You know, there's people who open up for the first time and they've never told anyone. So we basically 10, 15 minutes check-in, you know, how's everyone's headspace today? And then we get out in the ocean and surf. And the whole message is sometimes one wave is all it takes to free the funk. And, yeah, we just catch party waves and everyone's in bright outfits. It's like kind of like a lot of people on foamies, like all levels, you know. Some people just learn to surf.
Well, I was going to say, what about people who don't surf?
Yeah, some people come down for a swim. Some people come down and do beach clean. So massive supporters of Take 3 for the sea. So some people come down and do a beach clean. Some people come down and do yoga. So it's a full community thing. And then we all head for coffee afterwards. So it's super chilled. It's a free event every week of the year, and everyone's welcome. And then what we do is if there is someone that's really struggling and opens up for the first time, then we'll like refer to them onto like professional support, give them a number for a local doctor, or get them, you know, make sure they know the Lifeline and that they can reach out to Lifeline anytime and stuff. So yeah, that's kind of how it works. It's super chilled, and we have volunteer tribe leaders. There's at the moment about more than 50 volunteer tribe leaders around the world that run the Fluro Friday events. Yeah, so we're super lucky. So
50 different countries.
Oh, we've had these 50 volunteers, like about 50 volunteers that run the beaches every week or once a month. There's been, before the craziness happened the last couple of years, there's been, I think, 200 beaches in 40 countries that have run like at least one Fluro Friday, from like New Zealand to Norway. But the aim is to turn them into like regular communities, because like wellness is every day. We just want to make sure that there's someone down the beach every week in their Fluro or once a month. So the aim is to turn them into, there's about 30 at the moment, like, and that do the regular events in about 7 or 8 countries. But as soon as like all the restrictions go, we've got like so many more new beaches ready to go. So yeah, if anyone's keen to start a Fluro Friday at their local beach, I'll be so keen to chat.
Dude, so the Bondi one's still going?
Yeah, they're just back to the beach for the first time this last week in like 3 months. We've been having a virtual one for the last year and a half, just for anyone who can't make it down to the beach on Zoom. But last week was the first time Bondi could meet in 3 months. So they were so stoked, because we hadn't missed one at Bondi Beach for like eight years before that.
So you're in Canguu Bali now. From what I understand, you were previously in Norway with your lovely girlfriend. Because of COVID restrictions, you couldn't get back to New Zealand, correct?
Yeah, my visa ran in Norway.
And so you've ended up in Bali. Does this mean you're going to be doing one at Echo Beach?
We've got one at Batu this in 2 days' time on Friday morning, 6:30 a.m. So yeah, we got it. We got one happening. And you're leading it? Oh, well, luckily we've got some local crew that are going to outrun it, so it'll be super fun. So
Is that a big part of building the tribe, is by integrating the local communities as much, like local people as much as possible?
100%, because like without all the volunteer tribalists, like they run their communities, like from Whoopi Beach to Port Macquarie to Byron, like people, they give up their time to run their community. So the key thing for me is if you meet good people who want to bring it to their community and create that, that's the best thing ever. And like, so we're going to invite like Canguu School, because Canguu School's actually run a Fluro Friday before last year. So we try and get all the schools involved, all the local, like local board riders, and the more locals behind it. And that's the thing, because surfers, like a lot of us, is like seen as the happy people, but we all struggle. So if we can get the board riders behind it and all the local schools, then that's what it's all about.
And you know what? I just think, because I used to work at the Green School in Bali.
Oh, no way! Oh, sick.
Yeah, and I'll connect you with Francis Mollett, who runs the SOAP program, which is the Student Ocean Ambassador program, which they do beach cleanups and have a surf program, and I know he'd love to be involved. So yeah,
amazing.
We'll talk up the show. Yeah, Francis is an amazing guy who's definitely all about getting that one wave,
amazing, man. I'd love to. Yeah, I love what the Green School does.
Yeah, I worked there for 2 years just before the pandemic, and then came back to Australia. But one thing I want to say to you is, like, I'm listening to you, Grant, and I really believe what you're doing is very hard to measure. Do you ever stop and think about how many lives you might have saved?
No, I feel all I'm really doing is I feel so lucky to support, like when I was in the mental health ward, my mum and dad flew over from New Zealand, they were in there like every day, anything from just like bring me like burgers, or when I got 15 minutes free, just taking me outside, when I got an hour free, like taking me down for a surf. And then my friends in New Zealand, when I started opening up, like they showed me nothing but love. And so I feel all I'm doing is just really paying it forward from what people did to me, and just showing people, hey, look, you think people are going to run the other way, you think people are going to judge you, but you're actually going to help them. And so basically all I'm doing really is just going like, my family and friends can honestly save my life, and I don't know if I could get through it. But yeah, all I want to do is like, okay, maybe if I share this love of the ocean, and it's okay not to be like, I can maybe help one person. And yeah, that's what pretty much why I get up every day. And so I do One Wave part-time and my other marketing stuff part-time, but I love it, man. It's honestly, without One Wave and without having like purpose and focus on helping people, I would have been stuck and just super embarrassed about everything that happened, and I would have struggled big time,
Yeah, no, that's great, man. But I just really want to say, I think what you're doing is so special but important. Like, again, the first thing that comes to my mind is that you have no idea how many people are turning up to those circles on a Friday morning, Fluro Friday, who are on the brink, because we don't know what's going on in people's head. They're on the brink. They may be suffering from complete abandonment, isolation. They may have just had a breakup. They may have just, lost a loved one, and you just don't know. And they're turning up to those circles, and you've created a space for those people to feel loved and also open up and unload and offload. And again, I just really think you're saving lives, bro. You are literally saving lives. And so, dude, thank you, man. And I love you. I love you for doing it. So.
Oh, I love it too, bro. Yeah. Thanks so much, man. I really appreciate that. It's like, and same with you, man. Thanks for everything you do. I mean, this podcast and starting these conversations, as soon as I started chatting to you, I felt like we've known each other. I know when you can have these chats and it just feels, I forgot that we're even recording. But I think, mate, that's what it's all about, man, having these chats, because you like hear someone. I know the first time I met someone that had bipolar as well, I'm like, I just didn't feel alone. And I feel like sometimes it's just like hearing that thing of like, oh, I'm not the only one, because it's so hard to know what's going on in people's heads, So starting these conversations, mate, it's amazing, like this podcast. So thanks heaps.
Thanks, bro. Hey, so what's next for you, Grant? So, and what's the future of One Wave and Fluro Friday? What's the future, you think?
Mate, the dream is at the moment. I don't even. Last week I was trying to work out where I was going to go after Norway, so I couldn't get back to New Zealand, couldn't get into Australia. So I've made it to. I just got out of quarantine in Jakarta. So I'm trying to think of a couple of days ahead, but I'm doing that. No, the future, mate. The dream is by in a couple of years, 2023, we've got this dream to have 100 one-wave communities set up around the world. And that's going to give the dream's 100,000 people the chance to ride waves and talk about mental health. And so, and as part of that, to be running like 100 school programs. So that is, the big dream is to do that. And we're lucky with all the tribe leaders at the moment, the volunteers, like it wouldn't happen without them. So that's the big dream for One Wave, mate. And for me as well, it's just like making sure I take care of my own mental health as well, because I think that's the big thing I'd say to people is like, it's amazing to help people. And at the start, I just focused 100% like, how can I help people? But I kind of dropped the guard on my own mental health. So what I've learned to do is, okay, like, you got to take care of yourself. It's important to help people, and be kind. It's the best thing ever, but you got to be kind to yourself first. So my big thing is, okay, One Wave and trying to help as many people as we can, but don't forget to help myself as well and be kind to myself, So that's a big part of my journey I've learned. Hey,
dude, so epic. It's true. I love it, man. Yeah, like honestly, you can't help others if you're struggling. So I love that. But so listen, man, it's been epic. I'm grateful for your time, and we've already had a great chat, and the Bali internet connection is making me nervous, to be honest. I'm scared we're going to drop out any second.
So I'm looking out the window, scooters going past and stuff.
Hey, just on a quick note, like going back to Bali, what's it like now? I know the borders are starting to open, but is it super quiet compared to last time you were there?
Mate, it's definitely quieter than last time, but there's more people than I thought. There's a lot of expats and stuff that have stayed here. But I'm so happy to see it's starting to get the visit. There's probably around there's about 50 people on the water, old bands this morning, and about 20, 30 at Echo. Okay. So it's like the crowds and the surf are a lot less than normal, but there's still the cafes are opening, the bars are opening, it's starting to and then you can see there's tourists starting to travel in because they've just started the quarantine in Bali, and it's only 5 days now. So there's probably about 30%, I reckon, of normal. So it's quiet, but there's more people than I thought. And it's good. It's good to see, man. It's starting to, because they've had such a tough time, the Balinese. So it's good to see people coming back to support. That's for sure. So hopefully, man, it's been a crazy ride for everyone. Hopefully we'll be all surfing and having a couple of beers in Bali soon.
Yeah, I know I personally can't wait to get back there. We left there with 48 hours notice. And it was just devastating for me because, talking about finding a happy place, like so many, Bali's always been my happy place, even going there 20 years ago. But I was sad to leave, and but sad to leave the local people. Actually, I really feel like that. I feel like they're good for my mental health, the Balinese people, because so much of what they do is based in karma and empathy and kindness. It really is.
It's so true.
Especially once you start to really, and when you're there for an extended period of time, I see it more and more, like the way they do things. But also their sense of spirituality, for me personally, being surrounded by that and the ceremonies and even participating in some ceremonies from time to time, just it does something for my mental health. It gives you that big picture perspective, and it helps me. So anyway.
Mate, I'm exactly the same. When I turned up in Bali, I'm like, I think I've made the best calls. I'm like, can't get back to Aussie, can't get New Zealand. I turned up in Bali, everyone's just so happy and kind. And even though they've been through the toughest times and everything's easy to organise, I'm like, hey, this is what I need in my life right now. I'm like, okay, this is the people are super kind and nothing's a problem, and
that's lovely. And I think you've definitely made the best decision. I'm going to speak. I'm becoming more opinionated about the situation in Australia, and it is my opinion. But you know, the political climate here and the lockdown that I've been in for the last almost 4 months. You know, I haven't been able to go more than 5 kilometres from my house, and working from home. It's really lucky that I addressed my mental health, you know, years ago, because I have tools in place. And I know when I'm not running well, just like you. I know when I'm not running well. I know when I've got to clean my side of the street up, and I know what I've got to do. And I've got things that I know that work, and I've had to really put them into play, like being at home day in, day out, and not being able to travel far. So I'm so worried for so many people during what we're going through in Australia and New Zealand at the moment. So anyone that's listening, stay strong or fucking reach out. I guarantee if you send Grant a DM if someone sent you a DM on Instagram, you're going to reply to him. Am I right? You know, I'm sure you would. You know, or get on a Fluro Friday Zoom call, or go to an AA meeting. If substances are something that you are self-medicating with, go to an AA meeting or an NA meeting, or there's so many support groups out there, or call Lifeline and help them line you up with a support group, because there's something about reducing the feeling of isolation that will heal you. And I don't know why, it just does.
Yeah, man, 100%. I think the worst place to be stuck is inside your own head when you're struggling, you know. And I feel like if you just tell, like you said, just tell at least one person. If you haven't felt anxiety for the first time, to just anyone out there who has felt anxiety or depression and you haven't been there before, you're not crazy. Like, it's okay not to be okay, and you're definitely not alone. So just reach out to a mate, reach out to me, you know, like reach out to Shan. Give Lifeline a call, because people on Lifeline, they've been through it themselves, and just once you get it out of your head, you just realize you're not alone, you know. So, and it's tough and it's fucking hard, but I honestly, as soon as you start opening up, you just realize you're not alone, and that's the start to getting the good vibes back. So,
dude, you're the best, man. Anyway, listen, we'll start to wrap it up. I ask all guests to come to the podcast with a cause they want to support or advocate for. With someone like you, you've created causes. You have causes. We've talked about them. But can you tell us like something else you might like to advocate for today?
Yeah, I've always been a big supporter of Surf Aid and the amazing work they do for the communities in Indonesia. That was when I first actually had my first manic episode. That was the charity. I was going to start a charity. That was the charity I wanted to support. I was going to start a charity called Where the Party At and go around and throw parties and support Surf Aid. That didn't happen. It wasn't the best idea, but yeah, I'll be stoked to support Surf Aid. You know, they do amazing work.
Rad, man. It's a great one. And if you scroll down in this episode, there's a link to Surf Aid in this episode's show notes. Click on the link, go there, find out how you can be involved. But there's also links to Grant's initiatives, One Wave and Fluro Friday, and I'll also put Grant's social media handles in this episode's show notes. You can find this episode on terriblehappytalks.com and also all of the major podcast platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Overcast, Podcast Addict, iHeartRadio, and TuneIn Radio. And for whatever podcast you like to listen to this podcast on, it always helps me if you subscribe and leave a review so I can continue to publish weekly episodes and speak to legends like Mr. Grant Trebilco. Thank you, sir.
Thanks so much, legend. Awesome to chat.
I got one more thing also. Our good friends and major sponsor of the podcast, Indosol, will be giving you a free pair of flip-flops or slides. And it's really great because you're in Canguu and you can go straight down to the Echo Quarter to Indosol headquarters and grab a pair, man. I'll message Kai Paul right now.
I know Kai. That's crazy. I was actually scooting past there this morning. I'm like, I lost my slides when I went traveling. So I'm like, I need to call and see Kai. Get some slides.
We've got a pair for you, man. So just go in and, like I said, I'll because it's actually easy. It's easy. You can just pop straight in there, and I'm sure Kai will be stoked to see you if you're friends with him. He's the best guy, and Kai and Kyle Parsons have been supporters of the podcast literally from episode 30, so well over 100 episodes, and they continue to support the podcast. So big love to those guys. And, yeah, man, that's it.
How good. Thanks so
All right,
much.
brother. We'll leave it there. I'll just get you to stay on the line, but just stay on the line for a second. We'll leave it there. Thanks, mate.
Cheers, brother.